Today is all about replicating what we have learned from our mentors and what our participants could experience during the peer learning program that we offer. Prospect, Megan, the floor is yours.
So my name is Miguel Ángel García. So here you can find some general information about the project. The project started in 2015 and it ended in 2021. As I said, our main goal was to develop a replicable model, what we called the urban regeneration model, in order to transform or to understand how existing cities can be transformed into smarter and more sustainable places. We worked on three lighthouse cities, the city of Valladolid here in Spain, which is now one of the cities of the mission cities of this initiative that, well, probably you are aware of, where the European Commission is supporting 112 cities in order to become climate neutral by 2030 as lighthouses, in order to, well, support other cities to do so by 2050, which is the main objective for Europe in order to decarbonize the economy by 2050. So we worked with Valladolid and also we worked with the cities of Nottingham in UK and the city of Tepebasi in Turkey, where we implemented some solutions as those that you can see here, and I will focus, well, mainly on those in Valladolid, where you can see some well, energy renovation actions that we implemented in some of these districts, and also some of the mobility actions where we worked on developing solutions for sustainable mobility, mainly focused on electromobility for both public and private transportation. So deploying well, charging infrastructures and management procedures for these charging infrastructures. And then we had the two follower cities, the city of Segan in Belgium and the city of Miskolc in Hungary, that, well, as I said before, they were working on identifying how these replication strategies could work in these cities in order to ensure that replication was actually a core component of the model that we were generating. So this is the model that we created. That was a three-dimensional model in which we integrated, well, three main elements. First, the priority areas or the domains in which we were working, developing technologies and solutions to be implemented in the cities. As I said before, in terms of mobility, in terms of well, sustainable buildings, and then ICTs. And then we integrated this with the different phases that have to be covered in order to implement these transformation strategies. So basically the design of the strategy, the design of the actions, the implementation and the assessment, providing procedures and guidelines in order to, well, define how these different phases can be implemented in order to ensure this transformation. And then crossing this with the enabling frameworks that somehow ensure the possibility of implementing all these phases and for all these different domains in which we were working, which were basically defining the management procedures, so how to improve management and collaboration across the different actors, public and private. Then evaluation procedures in order to define indicators and mechanisms to ensure the evaluation across the phases to support not only the final assessment, but also support the design, the evaluation of alternatives, and so on. And finally, and very importantly, the finance. So how to finance all this and how to finance the implementation of these technologies and these solutions in the cities. But well, now focusing on the case of Valladolid and especially how it was implemented and financed. Well, here you can see the different buildings. These are the blocks, also the tower, and here you can see some of the of the problems they had. For example, the thermal breaches in the envelope because there was not continuity in terms of insulation in the walls, and also, well, they had very high levels of infiltration, uncontrolled infiltration, due to, well, constructive problems in the envelope as well. So our main actions were in line of reducing the energy demand by insulating the envelope, so working on the facades, the balconies, and also the roofs, then reducing the energy consumption by renovating the district heating, and also, well, with an action in order to change the lighting systems only in the common areas, and then finally to deploy renewable energy sources in order to contribute with biomass and with solar energy in order to decarbonize the heating system. And well, the project, as I said before, was really challenging in terms of in terms of the property structure that we had. As I said before, we had to negotiate with both and to work with both the association that they had, the community that was deciding over the district heating, and then the different communities that they had at building level. The process was really long and it was really intense, and we had to implement many mechanisms in order to ensure the participation of the different owners, their contribution also in terms of contributing to co-design some of the actions, and this was a very important part of the project, and also to co-design not only the actions but also the financial model. So we had to work with them in order to understand and to provide the best combination of financing mechanisms for them in order to ensure the implementation. So one of the actions that we carried out, it was to organize a lot of meetings and sessions with them with the involvement of the municipality, and this was essential, municipality representatives. So here you can see the councillor of urbanism and also the director by that moment of the housing company in Valladolid, and also some members of the innovation agency of the municipality that were in contact always with the owners in order to support them and to provide this support to the project from the municipal perspective, making them understand it that the municipality was really supporting them in this intervention, even though these are private buildings, but supporting as it benefits the city in terms of contributing to the goals of decarbonization. Also, it was very important to work on the communication, also understanding the kind of population that we had there, because at the beginning we started working with digital tools. We developed a website in local language for them to make questions, but then we realized that most of the people, they were not using that tools because the average age in the district is quite high. So we had to change our strategy, and we had to work on producing other sort of materials in order to communicate in printed materials, also door by door, in order to explain the project, to answer some questions, and to create this more direct connection with them in order to ensure this dialogue with all the owners. And this was also accompanied by a set of actions in order to ensure this dialogue and this collaboration and co-design in some of the elements. For most of them, we had the conditions of the project, of the funding of the European Commission, so it was quite limited, but for some others, we had the possibility in order to co-design with them some of the actions, for example, the decision of some of the strategies, or the decision about how to combine the different financing mechanisms. And a key element was the how to finance all this and how to pay all this. As we said before, here we had a combination of different instruments that we integrated in the best possible way in order to benefit the owners as much as possible. So we had the part coming from the Commission, the public funds that were covering approximately the 75% of the cost, what was really high. Also in combination with some municipal grants that the municipality, they decided to provide in order to support the project as well. So in total, with this public contribution, we had this 75%, and then for the 25% remaining, we had to establish mechanisms in order to support the owners on financing this, implementing the financing that was required. In total, I think it was like approximately 10,000 euros per dwelling that they had to pay. The 75% was covered by these public funds, so approximately they had to pay it was a bit more than 10,000. So in total, they had to pay like 3,000 euros for the interventions. This private contribution. So what we did for that part, it was to split this part into two different elements. One was the EPC, the energy performance contracting with an ESCO company, and then the second was a soft loan that was negotiated with a private bank in order to support, well, paying this part of the financing. Regarding the energy performance contracting, as Silvia has said before, basically energy performance contracting it is about externalizing the risks. So it's about receiving support from an external entity, in this case, the energy services company, that is providing this initial investment that is required, and that they are establishing this collaboration in the form of a contract so that they supply the energy over the duration of the contract. So they commit to supply the energy, and then they manage the systems, and they well, operate the systems in the best possible way, so that well, so to ensure that well, at the end the model is beneficial for all the parties, for the owners, and also for the ESCO company, because at the end, well, they have to make the profit. So in that sense, well, Veolia was the ESCO company that was participating in the project, and they offered some services in their contract which covered the energy supply. So all the, well, the supply of the thermal energy by operating the district heating network based on biomass, and also the photovoltaics that were connected to these systems. And also they provided the operations and the maintenance. So they took over the maintenance. And also they provided a total warranty, what means covering all the problems and all the issues appearing in the district for the duration of the contract. The total duration of the contract was negotiated for 18 years. It was 3 years in the framework of the project, plus 15 years after the end of the project. And during these 18 years, the ESCO company is providing these services, the energy supply, and also is in charge of the operation, the maintenance, and the total warranty over the systems. What means that if there is a problem with a boiler in year 17, they change the boiler, and then at the end of the contract, the owners, they have a totally new boiler that is covered by the contract. So meaning that, well, they can continue and they can negotiate a new contract with the same company, or they can go for a different company, but they have a renovated system. So they offered all this, and also they offered the financial part, and that was finally implemented not directly by them, but also well, facilitated by them, and well, they implemented this model. As well, we also said before, basically the way in which it operates is, well, as I said, is about externalizing risks and about paying the investment with the savings. So it means that the ESCO company takes over this initial investment, and they recover this investment with the savings that they have, in the way that at the end of the project, well, all the savings, they go to the owners, but during the contract, these savings are used in order to pay the investment. So, well, this is the process in which it works, and we will listen more about EPCs now with Megan. But yeah, basically the process, well, it is about establishing this contract, then well, all the part about understanding how everything works and defining how it will work, and then the process of well, paying these investments with the savings.
My name is Megan Janak. I work on project management at the Energy Agency of Upper Austria. The Energy Agency of Upper Austria is a regional energy agency. We're the central institution in the field of sustainable energy. So all topics related to renewables and energy efficiency, we are the central information point for all actors in our region. Our day-to-day work really is working on driving the energy transition and achieving climate neutrality in all sectors. So we offer services to households, to companies, and also to the public sector. And the bulk of our activities and services are really energy advice, information events, fostering networking between local and regional actors, a lot of training and mentoring in the context of projects like Prospect Plus, which goes beyond our borders, but also a lot of training of the actors on range of topics related to energy in our region. So Upper Austria is this red plot here. So as I was saying, the capital of Linz, we have a population in the city of about over 200,000. In the region in general, we have 1.5 million inhabitants spread over 440 municipalities. So you can compare these numbers a bit to your own region. The particularity of Upper Austria is that we have this dual, we're a very industrial region. We're the industrial heartland of Austria, and we produce 25% of the country's industrial exports. So we also we work with manufacturing companies who are also working on increasing their energy efficiency and the uptake of renewables. But 50% of the population live in small municipalities of just a few thousand inhabitants. So we also support these over 400 municipalities who are on tight resources in regards to the number of staff and the available budget, and have a lot of public services still that they need to offer on their territory. And this is where EPC is also very interesting in our region for such municipalities who can implement energy efficiency measures without using their own budget, as Silvia and Miguel have mentioned. So Upper Austria has quite a history of energy performance contracting. There's been a regional program that was started back in 1998 to support the market development of EPC. So it's a twofold approach where the main part of this program is facilitation services by our energy agency, where we support the clients and the ESCO companies, and we guide them through the development of their projects, the development of their contracts. And there's also a financial support from the regional government for projects who use the EPC model. This small amount of financial support doesn't make a project that isn't financially feasible will not become feasible because of this support. It really just is the regional government's way of showing that EPC is a trusted and good mechanism, and that if it is used, they will offer a small financial incentive to show that they also support this type of innovative financing. So since the end of the 1990s, there's been over 300 contracting projects in our region, about half of them in municipalities, but also half in companies and institutions, which shows that this type of model is not only interesting for public infrastructure, but is also interesting for private companies who will use EPC as an investment model in order to hold their capital and their funds available for other types of internal projects, whether it's R&D or extensions of their services or and products. So we've had projects mostly in the areas of street lighting, refurbishment, EPC in buildings and industry, renewable heat contracting, and we've triggered over EPC has triggered over 100 million euro investments in our region. We have about 30 ESCOs that are active or have done EPC projects in our region, but it didn't start out this way. So for all the participants in the room that are at the very starting, saying, I don't know where the ESCOs are. Do we even have ESCOs? In Upper Austria, it was also very slow at the starting. There were not a lot of ESCOs available. There was not a lot of trust in this model. And that's where the facilitation service, with a lot of efforts on the side of the energy agency, took really the role of explaining and coaching and guiding the first projects to get on foot. And with time, EPC has now found its place in the portfolio of sustainable energy solutions and is readily used throughout the region. So what is energy performance contracting? You've gotten a drift also from Silvia and Miguel's explanations. So it's a contractual arrangement between a client, so a municipality or a company, and a service provider, which we call an ESCO or an energy service company. The ESCO will typically finance and implement energy investments, so energy saving measures or the investment of an energy system. There's a variety of, we say they typically finance and implement, but there's a variety of different ways how the financing can take place, depending on whether the client or the ESCO can get the better rate at the banks, for example. So this is also flexible, and there's many options available. The ESCO then guarantees the energy savings in the contract, and they have the risk. They take on the risk, as Miguel has mentioned. They take on the technical risk and the financial risk of the projects, and they guarantee the savings in the contract. The investments and the capital costs or part of the costs. For example, also referring to Miguel's project, where part of the costs were covered by EPC and the others by other financing mechanisms. The investments and capital costs are covered by the annual cost savings that occur through the energy efficiency measures. Typically, this EPC is especially interesting for projects that have very high energy savings potentials and therefore also shorter payback times. So we see contract durations for streetlight refurbishment of around 5 or 7 years, up to contracts of 15 or 18, maximum 20 years for buildings and other types of heating installations. And it's a contracting as a financing and operation model. So the ESCO is responsible, since they guarantee the amount of savings achieved. They also operate the systems, maintain the systems, and make sure that they are running optimally, and that the energy efficiency that is guaranteed in the contract is achieved throughout the complete of the contract duration. So these are the 2 points that really makes EPC different from other financing instruments. So number one is these contractually guaranteed savings. You, as a client, have the guarantee in your contract that a technical level of energy efficiency will be achieved throughout the duration of the contract. And there's a guarantee mechanism in the contract that is a financial consequence for the ESCO if these savings are not achieved. There's different ways how this guarantee can be implemented. For example, the client could withhold or reduce their payments to the ESCO to compensate for unachieved savings. There can also be a bank guarantee from the ESCO, which is handed over to the client at the starting of the contract. So if savings are not achieved, the client can go to the bank independently and very easily access part of that bank guarantee directly from the bank to compensate for a lacking of savings. We've also seen projects where the ESCO is under the obligation to adjust or replace the equipment until savings are achieved at their cost. Other than these 2 aspects, EPC can take many forms, and it can be adapted to the legal, economic, and social context of each of your regions. So this might be a difficult part when you see certain regulatory or legal barriers in your region, how to get by these barriers. But if you work on it and you look at it, there usually would be a way to work with these barriers or adapt the EPC contracts or form of the project to be suitable for your region as well. So other aspects of EPC projects, so things like who finances the project or where the money exactly comes from, who performs the audit or designs the system, who does the maintenance work, big project, small project, if there's extra savings that are achieved throughout the project. So if the building users are very well informed and have a high level of awareness and change their behavior, and therefore the building is overall requires less energy throughout the years of the contract. Who saves and gains from these extra savings achieved, for example, can be put in the contract. The ESCO fees and the billing schedules, these are all elements that can be adapted and can be discussed between the ESCO and the client while developing a project. This is a bit of a different show of something Miguel has also presented, where it's sort of how does the energy performance contracting work along the contract period or along the project. So let's take an easy example of a municipality doing the refurbishment of their street lighting system to very efficient LED technology. So before their system was quite old, they had a high level of energy use and high energy costs. They discuss with an ESCO, decide that the ESCO will refurbish their lighting system. The ESCO designs the system and starts and implements the measures. So the measures that are implemented increase the energy efficiency of the system, and the level that you see here, the light blue and dark blue, represents the amount of energy savings and therefore the cost savings that are involved through this refurbishment project. Once the system has been completely refurbished and is operating, this is where the contract starts. And throughout the duration of the contract, the blue section, which is the cost savings that are achieved, are used by the ESCO to refinance the capital and investment costs. There can be two ways of, some municipalities would like to already benefit from some of these savings from the start. So they discuss with the ESCO to already benefit from a reduction of their electricity costs right at the starting of the contract period. This frees up some of their budget for other types of projects. In this case, then the contract duration might last a few years longer until the ESCO then is able to refinance the full of the project. Or so that's if the municipality wants to already benefit from cost savings right at the starting. If not, the municipality continues paying the same amount for their electricity even after the refurbishment's taken place. And the difference between the earlier cost savings and the earlier cost energy price and the actual energy costs is what the ESCO uses to reimburse the project. At the end of the contract period, the street lighting is under the ownership of the municipality. The municipality then benefits from the full amount of energy reductions, and their electricity costs are reduced for the future after EPC has then ended. Since I assume that most of you watching here today would be on the client's side of an EPC project, I've just brought a slide with some learnings from our experience from our facilitation service. What are key success factors to look for and to work on from the client side? So first is we can't stress enough how proper internal preparation is key. So really do your homework first and make sure you understand your data and that you know also what you would like to get out of this project. In a building, for example, also specifications like the color of the lighting in the office spaces or the temperature of the rooms in the building. These are specifications that will also affect not only your well-being in the building afterwards, but it also affects the energy efficiency levels. Of course, if a room is heated 2 degrees more, you need that amount more energy to heat your rooms, and you need to make sure that the calculations the ESCO is the ESCO's calculations are taking into account really the true use of the most probable use of the building afterwards. So really the exact definition of your specifications and requirements, try to bring these into the project as early on as possible. Also elements like if you would like to involve your own staff, this is in municipalities often a topic. So they have a bit of a worry that the ESCO will come in and will take away tasks or work from some of their employees. And it's possible to integrate this into an EPC project where your staff will still do some of the maintenance works or work with the ESCO during the contract duration. If possible, compare ESCOs. Try to gather more than one offer, and select the right ESCO, where the right ESCO is not always the one with the lowest price. It's also not always the one that's offering the highest level of energy savings. It's important to look and see what, like I was saying, what specifications were used to calculate those energy savings. So the right ESCO is one that you feel confident about, that has the technical, the financial, and the legal knowledge for implementing this type of project. In the best case, they already have other successful projects that they can present and use as good practices. And they have the openness and the transparency to develop this project with you and develop the contract with you. Before last point would be to really understand the contract. This is something you're signing and it will be long-term. We don't enjoy working with standard contracts, and we don't recommend either trying to find a template and using that template one-to-one. Of course, these templates that we can find online are very helpful if you're at the starting of your ESCO and EPC learning process to see how a contract could be built up, what type of content should be in a contract. And it's very important as a client that you really understand the elements of the contract and that they're discussed between the client and the ESCO. So we've seen contracts in our region of 3 pages all the way up to 30 pages. It's not necessarily the length that counts, it's the content and the clarity of the content and your understanding of the content. And then also, if you're able to do training or information awareness of the users of the system during the project, so whether it's the building users or your municipal staff that is doing the maintenance of the lighting, public lighting system, or whoever is working with the system afterwards, if you can involve them in the project and increase their awareness, it contributes to the overall success and outcome of a project. If you have access to advice and support from a third party, sort of like an energy agency or another type of regional development organization in your region, who can offer you external third party support in developing your project, it can maybe contribute to increasing your trust and your confidence moving on through the project, to have that extra bit of advice and helping hand. EPC is just one range of many possibilities of financing models. It's not appropriate for all projects and for all situations, but it can be used in many situations, and it's quite interesting. It's contracting as a long-term partnership, so there needs to be a lot of trust and openness between the partners. This is really essential. I try to keep in mind that EPC is flexible and can be adapted to your contexts and context and your needs. It's just a way to find out how that can be done. And to get the most benefit from EPC as a client, you need to understand the mechanism well before going into the project. This will also increase your well-being and your confidence in this new type of financing model you're starting to use. And that investing the necessary time in proper project development pays off in the end in your satisfaction and in the success of your project. So we often talk about bundling and doing very big, large EPC projects that are maybe interesting for international and large ESCOs, but keep in mind also that small can also be beautiful. And if you're at the starting of your EPC learning process, we recommend starting with smaller but good quality, well-prepared projects that maybe aren't financially as profitable, but that will permit you to get first projects started and successful projects that increases your confidence and the awareness and knowledge of EPC, and you can move on after that to bigger and better projects.
So today I will talk about the energy communities examples we have in Italy and the ones that we supported in the last couple of years. Bring in one specific case that was the case study for the Prospect Plus second learning cycle where we were involved. Okay, so the EU legislation behind renewable energy communities started in 2018 with the Renewable Energy Directive, RED II, and the Electricity Market Directive that set up the possibility for having renewable energy communities across Europe. And the concept, most of you might already know it because it's a concept that was invented during the 70s and already probably earlier in some cases, and it was developed in some areas of Europe and not across the continent. So we had the possibility now to start with this concept in other areas. We had a first implementation and trial phase between 2019 and 2020 with the first transposition of the European law. And we set up in Italy some very small energy communities, neighborhood level, with very small renewable energy systems that didn't expand very much because the scope was too narrow and the financial were not very interesting. Then the legislator decided to go for a scaling up process. So we had the possibility to expand the REC perimeter action. So we went from the neighborhood to nowadays the national level, and I will explain later what it means. And also the installed capacity for each power plant was increased from 200 kilowatts to 1 megawatt. So now we are talking about interesting numbers financially as well. So the concept is now spreading. Unfortunately, from 2021, we had to wait until this year to have the final legislative decree and the technical regulation by the national authorities. So as you see, more than 6 years passed from the EU legislation, but eventually we are up and running. And in these very days, we are activating the first renewable energy communities that we supported in the last couple of years, thanks to a regional action grant. What's an energy community in Italy? Very basic definition. It's a group of energy prosumers, so consumers and producers that collectively share energy locally, produce and consume. In Italy, it's not meant as a peer-to-peer energy transaction, but it's more a virtual calculation that is made by the national authority thanks to the already implemented energy meters that every household, every point, every building connected to the grid have already in place. So the definition is the minimum in each given time, which is the hour, between the renewable energy produced and the energy withdrawn from the grid by all the members of the community. So it's, as I said, it's a virtual concept and not a direct sharing of energy. And it works like this. So there will be a group of members that will produce energy thanks to their, for example, PV systems, and another group of members of the community that withdraw the energy. And the shared energy level is the minimum of the two. Then this amount of kilowatt hour will be multiplied by a coefficient that defines the incentive. So at the moment, the initial scheme in Italy is based on an incentive scheme that reward the fact that under a certain area, within an area of the territory, someone is producing renewable energy, some others are using renewable energy, and they are not overloading the national grid. So this is the basic concept. Then energy communities will be able to do other services in future, but at the moment, this is the basic concept that we have in place. How the incentive works. So we have two elements that are in place. The first one on the left is specifically dedicated to the producers. So when there is the household that we saw before that install the PV system, they will have, of course, the direct benefit of the self-consumption. But then when they feed to the grid the energy, they will receive a reward, an incentive that is linked to the current energy price. So the zonal so-called energy price. At the moment in Italy, we have an average of 100 euros per megawatt hour for the energy price when fed to the grid. And then if you are part of a community, when there is someone that withdraw the energy and that energy is also available, the community get an incentive that varies, as you see in the graph. So it depends both on the energy price and also from the size of each PV system, for example, that are installed. So the smaller, the better, to have more incentive in this case. And the lower the energy price, the higher the incentive. So this was made to counterbalance the effects. For example, when we had the Ukrainian war that started, the energy spiked to 500 euros per megawatt hour. So the incentive would have been much lower compared to the current energy prices. We also have some extra contribution, 10 euro per megawatt hour when we are in the north of Italy because of lower solar levels, for example, and also the area contribution itself is to you thanks to not using the grid too much. And the whole package goes from 60 to up to 140 euros per megawatt hour of the incentive. Here I will show you few examples on how they work, starting from the San Lazzaro di Savena example, and also a couple of others examples to see the energy and money flow within the concept. So starting from municipal buildings placed on the rooftop, we estimated an initial investment of 1.1 million euros spread among 11 PV systems for a total of 576 kilowatts installed. This amount of money also depends, which is quite higher compared to the normal ratio, because we had to include, the municipality wanted to include PV canopies as well, which in Italy are very expensive compared to the normal PV system on the roofs. So we are planning to install with them 575 kilowatts for a total of 700 megawatt hour per year, which will help the municipality with an interesting rate of self-consumption. So they will save directly 67,000 euros per year. And then they will inject and feed to the grid for 45,000 euros per year. And that will be even without being part of the community. So this is the ante-community scheme. When they will participate to the community, so the community will be fully active, they will contribute together with their other capacity they are going to install for 56% of energy shared. So a total amount of 378,000 kilowatt hour per year, which translate in 52,000 euros of incentive. So this is an extra lump sum that comes every year for the community. So we worked a little bit already on how to redistribute this amount of money. And they initially decided to split like this. So they would like to keep a 10% for the initial and minimal REC management quota. So a little bit more than 5,000 euros to pay literally someone that connect to the National Authority website and manage the communications with them. No extra fancy renewable energy management systems for now, but just to start. And then they decided to split the 40% to the consumers only and social environmental goals that they will define specifically over the year. And this is interesting because, for example, the consumers are not required to invest anything, not even the association yearly quota in this case, and they will just benefit for being part of the scheme without changing even their consumption levels to start. And then the prosumers, so in this case, the municipality only, will get the 50% of the benefits, so 26,000 euros. And this is an interesting extra element that comes from the scheme that will help to repay the investment, which is still high because we have a very relevant investment at the very beginning, but this will take down a few years of the payback. And if we will manage to get, for example, an EPC contract with a utility that will exploit the canopies for themselves, and they could keep part of the benefits without charging too much the municipality, we will significantly lower down the payback time. Going into a smaller example, so we are working a lot with small municipalities that, for example, have less than 5,000 people under their area. And again, the scheme will be very similar, but we consider an example of a small town that is able to install 126 kilowatts spread into 5 small PV systems. And in this case, we have a national scheme that helps small municipalities to invest, and they give a lump sum of related to the 40% as a co-finance scheme. It's not a loan, it's just a lump sum that is given thanks to the Recovery and Resilience Plan, PNRR in Italy. So again, here we have a little less self-consumption, so the municipality will save almost 5,000 euros. Most of the energy is fed to the grid for a benefit of almost 13,000 euros. When participating to a community that shares a good level of energy, so the 60%, we have around 9,500 euros per year of incentive that is then somehow redistributed to the members and a little bit kept for the social environmental goals. So here you see the amounts that are much lower, but again, this helps anyway the municipality to lower their initial costs, and for the first 10-11 years, they might be able to keep part of this incentive and then give it back, most of it, to the community. So it's a long-term, let's say, social contract that is being established. So everyone agrees that the producer is the one that need to be somehow rewarded the most at the very beginning, also to attract investors and attract producers. But then when the payback time is there and a little bit of extra has been given to the producer, most of the benefits could be kept into the community and increase a lot the quota for social environmental goals, for examples. Going with the final example here, we're talking about a bigger municipality where the ESCO is involved. So we are back linking with the EPC scheme. We did a study for a big city in Italy that we studied a total amount of 4.1 megawatts of PV system that could be installed throughout the municipal buildings for a total investment of 6.5 million euros. And you see a different color because we expect that this amount of money are interesting for ESCOs. And also here you see the difference between the revenue stream. So we have a self-consumption rate of 33%. The energy fed to the grid is the 67%. And we have here the direct benefits that mostly go to the ESCO that did the investment. So no money invested from the municipality, but from the private investor. They get both the whole energy revenues for the feed into the grid. So almost 5,000 euros per year. And as you saw before from the EPC schemes, most of the benefit goes to the ESCO for the energy savings. So the 90% of it goes to the ESCO for a total amount of 320 euros per year. Again, these schemes allows the municipality to be part of a community thanks to the private investors' PV systems. And here you see a significantly higher amount of incentives. So here we're talking about almost 250,000 euros of incentive per year. Again, considering a good level of shared energy. So here you need to have a lot of families, quite a good amount of small, medium enterprises that join the scheme. But we assumed with the initial studies that will be a feasible reach. And the redistribution scheme here was, again, 15% for the quota and social environmental goals. Here, take into consideration, we already took out 10,000 euros to run the scheme on an yearly basis, and the rest is distributed. So the consumers will get 20% of the incentive without doing much, not investing and not changing too much their energy consumption attitudes or habits. And then most of the incentive for a certain amount of years will go to the prosumer. So the 80% here will go there. And you see that this allows for a acceptably long payback time. So around 10 years, which is somehow the threshold for ESCOs to be part of these schemes. And we have still a direct benefit for the municipality on the direct investments and the direct self-consumption of 10% that they wouldn't have without this scheme. As I mentioned before, the link of these initiatives with other broader initiatives like for example, energy retrofit of these 48 buildings makes even more the case for a PV installation. And when we see, for example, we studied a bundle investment around 30 million euros of energy retrofit, including PV. We are pushing the market to offer some benefits for winning the contract, and a lot of municipalities are now looking at giving the preferable choice of benefits to having free PV systems from the ESCO that provided the offer in order to win the contract, rather than other measures like, I don't know, maintenance costs reduced or other elements of the usual contract. So there is a push for having somehow free PV systems, and this will help again the overall scheme. So we are starting to see that here the scheme, of course, is based on the bigger the better, but at the same time there is the need to keep a balance on the territorial level, because people feel part of a community when they are somehow in a certain area. They don't like a lot at the moment. We're seeing regional scale communities or national level communities because they perceive it closer to a national utility rather than an energy community. So we're seeing that the city level or the territorial areas of few municipalities that are, for example, unions of municipalities, it's quite acceptable and they are very interested to join. That's on the field feedback from the first year of events on the ground.